The Foreseen Arcade. Active.
So, as you may already know, I made 3 episodes of my worst rated game series where I look at the old game magazines to talk about what games were of very poor quality in the mind of the assigned writer. So far I did videos for Sega Saturn magazine, Cube magazine, and both parts of PlayStation Plus magazine. But what about games that I have personally reviewed? In fact, I don't just make gameplay videos and scripted, chatty stuff like this. I occasionally post reviews of games I played on InfiniteBacklog, a website where you keep track of your game collection across many platforms, new and old. As a matter of fact, as of the making of this video, I have uploaded 69 reviews on InfiniteBacklog. You know, I kinda wish I could upgrade the old blogspot into an actual website that I can easily update more often, because I would love to have my name and website as a professional critic, be it for modern or retro reviews on mobile games. My first review on InfiniteBacklog was for the PC version of The Game of Life 2, more specifically the Deluxe Life Bundle, which came with a Season Pass for all DLC on November 21st, 2022. Following that, I later did reviews for the first 2 Evercade cartridges in a numbered order, being Atari Collection 1 and Namco Museum Collection 1. Within the long list of reviews, some of my highlights include Retropolis, LTO Arcade, Monopoly SpongeBob SquarePants Edition, the My Arcade Dig Dug Pocket Player, the Hyper Megatech Super Pocket Taito Edition, and 20 Bunnies. But then I came upon an idea. Why not do a video where I talk about the games I consider to be bad? Granted, I'm no Jonathan Nash, but you can't blame me for sharing my 2 cents on what I've played. And of course, some of them are games you might have likely never heard of, so I guess that's gonna be an interesting ride. Since I am mainly going to look at games that I have given a score of 3 out of 10 or lower, I want to start this video off with a little exception, as this game is somewhat rubbish, but not nearly as bad as the later games in this video. In this case, Hard Rock Pinball. Hard Rock Pinball was developed by Jefferson Diaz and released on Steam in 2020. This is a rock-themed pinball game that was supposedly made to invoke the fun of the older pinball tables from the past. It includes 3 tables, and the idea is that it had a skull and crossbones wearing a tomahawk, serving as a boss in the game that can present more opportunities for you to earn a higher score, as well as the fact that you also get 3 different types of ball for use. In my review, I gave the game some praise for the artwork, the fact that it works with a keyboard, controller and a mouse, as well as the game only costing €59. I wasn't fond of the fact that the bullets from the boss are hard to avoid, the lack of a tilt feature that we see in many pinball games, and the fact that all of its Steam achievements practically don't work. And then there's the fact that despite being called Hard Rock Pinball, the only music track you hear is just a drum solo with no actual guitar. As bad as Kiss Pinball for the PlayStation was, at least it did have some actual rock music to back it up. I gave the game a 4 out of 10 rating, where I suggested that while it may be okay if you want a pinball game for pocket money, it's something achievement hunters and true pinball wizards probably should avoid. The next game for the video is my first 3 out of 10 rating, which is also my first negative review I wrote on InfiniteBacklog. Ace of Words. Developed by 0-Bit Games and published by Ocean Media LLC, this is a word game where you have to figure out as many words within 2 minutes using only 6 letters that are randomly assigned to you. The game is obviously played with a mouse, but it does work with a keyboard or a controller. But the big problem with this game is that for a game that came out in 2016, this game has a lot of common words that, despite being common, do not actually register. Seriously, words like rip or true are considered wrong words, when literally every other word game, regardless of quality, recognize them as commonly used words. And the amount of commonly used words that don't register in Ace of Words is absolutely shocking. While I might have praised it for easy achievements, I still felt it's not worth it, given the dictionary that's too small for word game standards and a pretty steep asking price of €5. Ace of Words is not an ace word game, that's for sure. Ever since the Wipeout series became PlayStation exclusive, starting with a third game in 1999, as well as the eventual closure of Studio Liverpool, formerly known as Psygnosis, after Wipeout 2048 for the Vita, a lot of small indie developers have tried to fill in that anti-gravity racing hole for PC audiences. After all, the only games in the series to make it to PC were MS-DOS releases of Wipeout and Wipeout 2097, the latter of which even making its way to the Amiga, believe it or not. But for every good clone, like Ballistic NG and the Flashout trilogy, we also get hopeless imitators like Ampersand, developed by PyGravity. Published to Steam in 2015 by Back to Basics Gaming, the description claims to be a furiously fast-paced racing game with futuristic vehicles and environments. Too bad the actual game looks and plays like a busted eyeball dog some greasy redneck found at a dumpster, as it's not actually fast-paced. I criticized the game for its bad controls and turning, very poor physics, and the fact that it's unwinnable when played normally. In fact, the game is so poorly programmed, you can basically win every race by frequently turning the ship around and going backwards, then turning around and passing the finish line, which basically counts as a lap. Needless to say, I gave it a 1 out of 10 rating, with the only points of praise being the music and the fact that it's mercifully short. Still not worth the asking price of €69, mind you. Speaking of terrible games that are mercifully short, next is Dead Bits, released in 2014 by Microblast Games. It's basically a first-person shooter where you take control of Quilly, who was abducted by aliens and thus has to fight for his freedom by killing zombies. My review was pretty short, given that there wasn't much to say about it other than the fact that the game had bad level design, the unnecessary bullet time slow motion happening randomly for no reason whatsoever, and the fact that the music, the only good thing about the game, doesn't even loop again in-game. It's safe to say that it was a really bad FPS, which is why I gave it a 2 out of 10. Can you believe they actually charged €5 for this? Now, for the next game on the video, I should point out that I actually got this particular title as part of a bundle, which consists of games made by developer Victoria Games. I got the bundle for €69 during a sale, and Pranky Cat was one of the included games. Released in 2018, this is essentially a clone of a cult classic comedy game, Neighbors from Hell, but with anthropomorphic cats and dogs. Unlike Neighbors from Hell, Pranky Cat is not good. For one thing, even for the fact that it was made using Construct 2, the game feels cheaply made with the stiff animations and glitches. It feels like something a 6-year-old would have cobbled up on Scratch in 10 minutes. Another problem with Pranky Cat was the fact that Victoria Games managed to sneak in copyrighted screenshots from the Illumination movie The Secret Life of Pets in a fire station level. And the fact that it's on a game where they were charging €9 for it, that's basically asking Universal Studios and Illumination to send them a cease and desist. The skateboarding sections are pretty badly designed too, as it's easy to hit the obstacles due to bad collision detection. But the biggest issue of all, none of the so-called pranks are even funny. It feels like Victoria Games failed to understand what makes Neighbors from Hell such a timeless classic even to this day. While the idea was interesting, but be honest, I would rather have an official Zootopia themed Neighbors from Hell spin-off from THQ Nordic and Handy Games if they would ever get the go-ahead from Disney to make one. Pranky Cat is not worth any price, which is why I gave it a 1 out of 10 in my InfiniteBacklog review. I have one more Steam game to cover on this video, and this one comes from a Mexican company, Encenasoft. Fantastic 4 in a Row 2 was released on Steam in 2016, and no, there was no Fantastic 4 in a Row 1. I don't know why they decided to call it a sequel for a game that didn't even exist, but what do I know. The game is basically a game of Connect 4, but with a unique gimmick. If playing up to 4 players, the board becomes 3-dimensional, allowing you to rotate the board. This meant that the winning combination can wrap around the board. But the problem here is that it's only for local multiplayer, so only the regular 1 vs 1 4 in a row is possible in this game when playing against the AI. And said AI opponents are way too smart to beat when facing against difficulty levels 3 and 4. This game is sold on Steam for only 79 cents, so while it's not a bad deal, especially when compared to Mark and Technique's 4 in a row or Lol Bozo's multi-dimensional 4 in a row, which are sold for €15 and €5 respectively, I still gave it a 2 out of 10 as it's still asking too much for what little content there is, as well as the fact that there are a lot of free alternatives on smartphones and tablets via Google Play or the Apple App Store. Now that I am done with Steam titles for this video, next on the agenda are PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games. With the first game to cover is Alienzix CyberNet. This one was made by Citylon in 2025, which happens to be this year, and while the developer is usually best known for those addictive one-button games with usually easy platinum trophies, Alienzix CyberNet is too easy even by their standards. No, I'm serious, all you need to do to get the platinum in that game is pressing on the DualShock 4 touchpad and rub it like a madman. Heck, I have saved the entire gameplay video so I can show you how quickly you can beat this game. I've seen platinum trophies from Ratalaika last longer than this game. No wonder I gave it a 1 out of 10. For the next 4 games on the PlayStation 4, you'd better get used to hearing these 2 words. Sebek Limited. This is the same studio that was infamous for their 3D remake of the Popeye arcade game. They are notorious for making games coupled together with 3D assets from the Unity Asset Store and selling these games for £7.39, which is basically €9. A lot of their games are barely playable and are usually barren in terms of content. And the first of the Sebek titles I reviewed was Snakes and Ladders, released in 2020. Of course, this is not the first time this board game was adapted to consoles, as way back in 1984, we had a Snakes and Ladders game for the Elector TV Games computer. The first problem with this PS4 game is similar to Fantastic Four in a Row 2 from earlier. Why bother with a console version when you can get the same kind of game for free on your phone or tablet? Even if you do want to play Snakes and Ladders 4 on PS4, for some reason, it still gets boring fast, since there's not much else to do in this game content-wise. I gave it a 3 out of 10 because as while it's still better than other Sebek titles, it's still way overpriced. Also, it's funny how there are Snakes and Ladders games with a bleeding price tag on them, yet they don't even try to put out a unique spin on the gameplay, or at least add anything worthwhile. The next Sebek game on the video is Car Mayhem, which at least does try to add more variety and content, as it has 3 games in one, and none of them are actually good. In Pursuit, you have to avoid police cars that chase you, and for whatever reason, they explode upon contact with you or another police car. That one had no sense of speed whatsoever, as the cars are as light as cardboard, and the cars all go about as fast as that 3-wheeled car you might have seen on Mr. Bean. Destruction is basically what it looks like and feels like if you got Wreckfest off of AliExpress or Temu, where the cars easily get destroyed with no effort. And the third game on offer, Apocalypse, has you running over as many zombies as you can before the time runs out. The physics are the same across all 3 games, as your car can sometimes flip into the sea, ending the run prematurely. And crushing zombies in Car Mayhem just isn't as satisfying compared to any Carmageddon game. Heck, running over zombies in Carmageddon 64 is a lot more fun in comparison, and that came out in 1999. And frankly, that 1 out of 10 score from my review is well deserved. The second Sebek game to get a 1 out of 10 is ZOMB, which goes off to a bad start when the game's store icon and load screen is clearly trying to imitate the iconic cover art of the original Doom from 1993, which pretty much shows how desperate they were in making something worthwhile with these zombie assets. What you do in ZOMB is that you walk around the map and shoot zombies while keeping an eye on your health and ammunition. While the supply drops give you more health and ammo, as well as more powerful weapons, it doesn't change the fact that you walk about as fast as a pensioner after eating bad oysters. And when you kill a zombie, their groanings sound like even they are bored of being in this game, and I don't blame them. The game also had some glitches, like zombies getting stuck on cracks on the pavement or on trees. Since I gave it a 1 out of 10, I would suggest you avoid this game like you would avoid an actual zombie during an apocalypse. It really feels like for every Sebek game I rip apart in a review, an angel gets its wings. And this is especially the case with the last Sebek game on this video. And given that it got a 1 out of 10 score from me, you can imagine where this is headed. Air hockey is, well, air hockey. You smack the puck into the opponent's goal while defending yours. It's a kind of game that is so sudden easy, even I could cobble one together with something like GB Studio or Godot. And yet, Sebek still somehow managed to botch this up, as besides the lack of options, the game has sluggish movement and is very laggy when frame rate is concerned, making it almost impossible to win at all, let alone getting all the trophies in the game. Again, they expect PlayStation 4 owners to cough up £8 for their games. And it's not like PlayStation 4 owners would actually want to play air hockey on console, considering it does share the same problem as Snakes and Ladders, where there are plenty of free alternatives on your phone or tablet. But even then, air hockey on the PlayStation 1 is way better and more fast-paced than what we got from Sebek, which is why it got a 1 out of 10. And to finish up the video, it's time to look at a more recent negative review for a game, this time being for the PlayStation 5. There have been a lot of idle games on PC and mobile, and I have certainly played a few. To give you examples, I played Idle Mastermind, Make More, Tiny Cafe, Crazy Taxi Gazillionaire, yes, that was actually real, and what was the name? Oh yeah, Clicker Heroes. While idle games on consoles are nothing new, Idle Zoo Park, developed by InLogic Software, is certainly the worst I have encountered so far, and for good reason. It was originally released as an HTML5 browser game in 2021, and for whatever reason, Ocean Media, the same publisher as Ace of Words, thought it'd be a good idea to work with InLogic Software to port it to consoles with barely any changes whatsoever and sell it for £8. When combined with the fact that even the idle part doesn't even work right, since offline earnings only work when the game's constantly running, this can easily be seen as a ripoff. I gave it a 2 out of 10 as the only reason to get this at a sale, when it goes down for as low as £1.59, is for the Platinum Trophy. But even then, this is pretty much redundant for PlayStation, considering that Cookie Clicker, originally released in 2013, just recently got a port for PlayStation 4 and 5, and it is sold for half the asking price of Idle Zoo Park. And besides, the free-to-play offerings on console, like Adventure Capitalist and Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realm, are backward compatible with the PlayStation 5, so why not just play these two games if you're looking for an idle game on console? And with that, we're done with a tour of what I believe are the worst games I reviewed on InfiniteBacklog so far. As you may have noticed, I only covered games on PC and PlayStation 4 and 5. I have yet to find some particularly bad games on Xbox One, Evercade, and whatever I have in my physical collection for my Polymega and PlayStation 2. But since I also cover retro achievements, this also means I am also willing to review ROM hacks and homebrew games. If you have any games you'd like me to review, feel free to look at my InfiniteBacklog collection and maybe browse what's on Retro Achievements, Steam, Atari Age, itch.io and whatnot, and I might probably write it down on a list of what to review for in the future. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Foreseen Arcade.